God tells man of his purpose, and then he gives him instruction as well. And I say this is extremely important because it teaches us at least three things. I say it teaches us that men are intelligent because they're able to communicate with their creator, and it also teaches that God is the knowledgeable and truthful source. Because we was asking the question, who's this knowledgeable and truthful source?
Yep.
Clearly, men have an aspect of it where you can learn from one another, but we limited. God is the all-powerful, all-knowing, and He's truth.
Definitely.
So that's where you get your information from. And not only that, I think this is probably the most important point. It teaches that God cares about His creation, and to the point about God communicating with us teaches intelligence. Because intelligence is what? The ability to acquire and apply knowledge. One can only acquire knowledge if it's what? Communicated to them.
Yeah.
And so again, just trying to think from a skeptic's worldview or perspective, I think they would retort, God ain't teach you math, God ain't teach you science, He ain't teach you languages, but what? He gave us the capabilities of doing so.
Definitely.
And like I said, if you don't argue from a creationist worldview, what you arguing that evolution gave this to us? Then you would what? Say evolution has some sense of intelligence. Which would what? Defeat your whole worldview, that it's not random. That what? There's some intelligence that goes in behind this. And so it's like, we got to stop and think about these things because we don't, like I said, just as much truth that is found in Genesis. Right there, like I said, God is communicating with His creation. You read it right there. It says what? I'm informing you of your purpose and instructing you, but man can comprehend what's going on. So what? We see that God is what? That knowledgeable source. But again, if you want to reject God, what do you turn to? You turn to nature. And we see this in Scripture. It's like God done told you His purpose, and then He instructed you. He said what? Don't eat from the tree. He gave you instructions.
Clear.
He gave you instructions. But what happens? We see the serpent come and deceive. Now what happens? Most people read that account and be like, a snake talking?
That was good.
A snake talking?
That was good.
How you gonna tell me this is true when you got a snake talking? What's your response to somebody who coming with you, a skeptic, saying, hey, I ain't even get past Genesis. I'm in the first 3 chapters, but I see a snake talking. How did we explain that, my brother?
Look, I'm gonna ask them to watch Disney. You know? You know what I'm saying? All them Lion King movies, The Circle of Life, and all of that. I'm gonna test their knowledge on cartoons. Man, probably thank God I ain't had that question to ask, but I really, and that's what was blowing me away, because you really addressed that question. It really goes back to the point of you saying, like, hey, like, look, don't miss
the point.
The point. The point is that we're looking for creation, nature, ourselves, including creation, to try to find answers instead of really getting the Creator and seeing that and doing that. And so, and I think sticking to the point, that point is really important. It's like really for somebody, I guess, for somebody that could really, really be hung up on that. But I think really showing them like, hey, look, people do that stuff too. It might not be a snake. You know what I'm saying? They're looking at the stars, and they're looking at their horoscope to speak to them. They're looking at like all kinds of, mysterious ways. Maybe their dog or whoever it is. I mean, like, it's not, I don't know how it was at that point. I think the point of your book was good, that obviously we look outside of God, so it could be in nature, it could be whatever it is for you. But I think essentially is you got to get with the Creator. You got to get your information from the one who created it, or it's going to be really chaos. You kind of hit on that a lot, to just how disastrous not really going back to the source. And I say this all the time with the kids I work with. If you have like a PlayStation 4, you know what I'm saying, and you got a 2-year-old baby in there, you know what I'm saying, and what are they going to do? They're going to take it, put the controller in their mouth, they're going to be slobbering on it, they're going to be like, doing what it's not really made to do, but, if you could instruct them, say, hey, this is how it's to be used, etc., you would know that you push buttons, you do this, you do that, or if you read the manual, you'll know how to actually use it when you get it. And I think that's how it is when God's green earth. You know, it's just like, hey, we're here. We just go, we start playing with stuff, touching stuff, doing all kinds of stuff, not really checking with the creator of like, hey, what did you make me for? What's the purpose of that? Where does animals do come, you know, in line with us? You know, are we side by side? Are we equal? Or did you really give us dominion and reign over that, you know? Or, you know, when we look, how do I treat my wife or my girl? Or, you know, all these things you can find in Genesis. You know what I'm saying? Like, am I here to work or not? Is work good or is it a curse? Mm-hmm. Like, all those kind of things you can find when you start with the origins. And that's why it's in the book, you know? And so, you know, people get hung up, hey, it's not a science book, but hey, this is very core to the value of who we are, what we believe, and God has communicated to us those beginnings enough that we need to know to live life and the way He wants to live.
Nah, that's good because, and I'll just throw this out there for those listening. I think the snake did talk. We might think it's crazy, we might think it's foolish. I think it did talk, but what we can't miss is the point, because what I just finished saying, God then gave man His purpose, and we'll get to that later, to be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. He done gave us our purpose. Yeah. So He informed us, and then He instructed us, hey, you got this paradise. You could do whatever you want to do. Don't eat from the tree. Yeah. So who informed us? God did. Yeah. He's a knowledgeable and truthful source. Yeah. So what? Something else comes, contradicts what God says. Yeah. Who I'm going to listen to? That's like a stranger coming up to your daughter and saying, hey, your father said do this, but I'm telling you to do this. Yeah. Who your daughter supposed to listen to? Her father. You gotta listen. Her father. So we got Adam and Eve in the garden, seen what God done did, and said, let me not listen to God. Yeah. Let me listen to this creature. And that's the point that's being made. Yeah. Instead of getting our information and instruction from God, we get it from creation. And so you as an evolutionist thinking it's foolish for a talking snake, but you do the same thing. You look into creation to inform and instruct you. Exactly. And that's the whole point. You're not looking at God, you looking at creation. Yeah. And it's like you being just as foolish as the book that you reading and thinking, man, this don't make no type of sense, but you're missing the whole point. Yeah. The whole point is what? You looking at creation to inform and instruct you with what? You got God right there to inform and instruct you. And it's like that evolutionary worldview is so corrupt because what? Charles Darwin, this was I think in the 1800s, not even 300 years ago. Yeah. Nature didn't talk to this man. All he did was observe nature, come back and then tell us, and then we run with it and take it as gospel. Yeah. And I'm making a point, I'm like, so if and like I said, I always trying to think critically. Yeah. I want to be as critical of my worldview as I am of an evolutionary worldview. Yeah. But it's like people who uphold evolution don't even stop and think about it. Because it's like, if evolution is true, and there's billions and billions and billions of years that gone past, how only in the last 300 years we come to know this is true? So you telling me millions of years went by and nobody said, oh, bro, I done evolved from this. Yeah. Why there's no written record or no eyewitness account of this happening prior to Charles Darwin? Yeah. Yeah. If it's true, what eyewitness account written record we see? We always see almost all cultures and throughout history have acknowledged a deity. May not be the same exact deity, but they acknowledge a deity. Nowhere else do you see somebody saying, yo, we used to be a monkey-looking thing, and now we're a human. Yeah. Wouldn't you expect to see that? But you don't ever expect to see that. And then this is the other point that I'm making too, like history. How do you determine history? And I made this point several podcasts ago. You determine history by an eyewitness account or written record. If you wasn't there, how can you say this is how the world came to be? You can't. We using science. You can't use science to determine history. Yeah. You determine history by? I can't speak to your childhood. Yeah. Only you or the people around you could speak to your childhood because I wasn't there. Definitely. And that's the same point. Well, who informed and instructed us how the earth came to be? The one who was there. Yeah. And that's God. Exactly. And so I say this, and let me see if you agree or not. I think you would, but I see if you can elaborate on it. I say those who have an evolutionary worldview should be pitied. Would you agree with that statement? And if you do, why?
When you say pity, what do you mean?
Pitied in the sense where, what's the ultimate purpose of evolution? It's like, number one, humans only found their purpose, which is to evolve 300 years ago. Yeah. So you telling me all those people prior to Charles Darwin didn't even know what their purpose was.
Exactly.
You know, they just going around believing in the pie in the sky, and Charles Darwin comes and say, nope, you're all wrong. But what, from a biblical worldview, no, Charles Darwin, you wrong. And the majority of the people kind of subscribe to this evolutionary theory because what, you read the scripture and it's like, man, this is old, this is dated. We were talking about this before, science trumps scripture. No, it don't. But what, you see what science ultimately leads, because what, there's millions and millions of years of death. And then what's the ultimate purpose? So to that effect, and I'll kind of get into the last point.
Yeah, I think when if someone to really, sit down with a book and really think through, the thing from, the first man and nature and just the evolutionary thought. And I mean, I think if people really think through, where do we get this information from, and is it coming from a source, or is it all accident? We really coming from nothing, and we just maybe evolved to this knowledge, or whatever the situation is I think you got to be challenged. And me, just one of the books I was exposed to when I was in college with it, I didn't go as in depth into thinking through it that way, but I find a lot of people, a lot of people ain't scientists, a lot of, a lot of that has really been communicated, but I found that people have deeper issues, and they probably have more issues with the source. They have, more issue with the source and how, they hung up on the snake, or they hung up on this. And I think, if anything, look into the fact that, hey, you're going to see that consistent. When you see what you see in the Bible, it's not going to be, some things ain't going to be clear. It's going to be clear principles of what we see, what God does and what man does. And if man is looking to nature, as man is looking to creation, to find that, you're going to see that consistency in every religion. You're going to see it in Hinduism, or now it's really popular, universal. You part of that universe now. And so now you kind of, whatever, bring in some, some answer to the table, because you're supposed to be included. And we kind of see this whole thing of pointing back to us, and to creation. And I think, if you just really think of that concept, you can see those consistencies. You can see the consistencies in a lot. You don't have to understand a lot, but you can understand that, okay, there was a creator, they had a creator with a purpose, and there's things that really are pulling us away from that purpose, even from the beginning. And what was that thing? It was creation. It was nature, or it was ourself. And anything you can think of creation, if you look for answers in that, you might want to reconsider what you believe.
And the reason that I asked that, because it led to the third point that I was making about God communicating with us. So I said God communicating with us teaches us three things. It teaches us that we are intelligent. And that kind of, again, we're so arrogant. We thinking that we smarter than our predecessors. We think we know more than those who have come before us. But when I read scripture, Adam and Eve were highly intelligent beings. Well, I ain't evolved from no monkey. And that, just that, how offensive that is to say you evolved from an egg-like creature. People just run with that. I ain't no animal, bro.
One of the things that was crazy, because, I tell people that, as well, as when you were saying that, hey, look, you look at nothing in creation shows that we're equal with. I go to the zoo, I just took my kids to the zoo. We're not in the cages, they're in the cages, they're for us to, and obviously to enjoy, and for food or whatever the situation is. We do not see it in any civilization, in any society, no Planet of the Apes, taking over the humankind, and so, that alone should just, Genesis, you stay some time in that and really kind of compare, you can really see, hey, it is kind of true, man. We do have dominion. We do have intelligence that animals don't have. They're not building kingdoms and, whatever they got, as much as you want to believe the circle of life, it's and they're not doing what we have really contributed to. And so one of the things that in that book, which was called Ishmael, was talking about basically who was more involved. Everything else in creation leaves, they're giving back, and we're the dominant survival of the fittest, and we're taken, and we're this dominant creature of the evolved creature that's really more powerful. And that was basically the solution for what they call as evolution. But really, we just made it in the image of God.